Welcome to Technado.
Welcome to another episode of Technado. I'm your host, Sophie Goodwin. Looking forward to jumping into some more tech news this week. Going to talk a little bit more about some developments in the world of Apple. We're also going to be talking about Barracuda and revisiting some of the stuff we talked about last week. So that's going to be fun. And with me, of course, is Don Pizzette. How are you today, Don?
I am doing great. You know, it was a bit of a slow news week because we had the big Apple announcement last week and all the other companies competing. But you know, the world of security didn't let us down. It's a total debacle out there, and we're going to have fun talking about it.
And, of course, there's Dan over there. Hi.
Hello.
Go ahead, introduce yourself. Yeah, Dan's dealing with a little bit of a sore throat today. So.
It's not sore. It's just like it's, I don't know, like I've got laryngitis or something. I feel like the Knights Templar from, what's his name?
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, thank you. Yes, Indiana Jones. Like, he has chosen poorly. That's how I feel.
I can see that or hear that.
I'll add it to the list.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh my gosh, how do you not see an Indiana Jones film? That one.
I saw
Crusade.
Temple of Doom. It's not in Temple of Doom.
It's the Last Crusade.
Because I would have remembered that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I saw Temple of Doom,
Were there
and that
any
was it.
Knights Templar in the Kali cult?
I don't remember.
Maybe.
You never know.
They could be inclusive. You don't know.
Could have converted.
Well, I'll add it to the list, and I'm sure I'll probably have several more movies to add to my list by the
Now
end
you're
of the
just
episode.
lying, though. You're not going to watch any of these.
Oh, I have a list. I didn't say I was going to watch them.
You
I
act
do
like
a
you have
list.
something to do when you go home other than watch movies. You and your life.
Wow.
And
I thought you said my wife for a second. I was like, yeah, actually, I've got a whole family at home that you don't know about.
17 kids.
Just trying to put food on the table.
That's right.
Well, I do have a list. I didn't say I was going to watch all of them, but I do have a list. So we'll see what I come up with by the end of this episode. But for now, I did say we were going to revisit a little bit of news in Appletopia. I don't know, Apple Land. Because we did spend quite a bit of time talking about some Apple developments last week because of that conference that happened. But this article comes to us from Mac Rumors. It says, Apple makes developer betas free to download and install. So as long as you have an Apple ID, you can enroll in the free version of the developer program, right? And you get access to beta releases. Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, and just for the record, like the official name of this segment is now Appletopia. I think that one's going to stick.
Great.
You know, with all the big Apple announcements last week, some of which were kind of neat, we
Hold on,
talked
New
about
York or Big Apple?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. There really weren't any big announcements out of New York that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Well, good.
But but anyhow, we had Mac OS Sonoma and all that stuff that was announced, and that's all cool. But there was one announcement that kind of went under the radar. In fact, I didn't notice it until after we had already filmed the podcast to be able to bring it in last week.
Steve Jobs back from the dead.
I'm sure they're working on that. Like that's the real reason behind the AI and VR push.
Yeah, that's it. Just to
Rebuild Steve
have
Jobs.
Steve. It'll be some weird nightmare scenario. He realizes he's alive again, starts peeling the flesh from his body.
It'll be like
that's what I
Lawnmower
envision.
Man.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
So anyhow, the announcement is up until WWDC this year, if you wanted to try the beta versions of Mac OS, you had to have a developer account. And the developer account cost $100 a year. If you publish apps for iOS or Mac OS, iPad OS, all of it, you need the developer account. It's $100, right? You pay it, you get access. Well, I always thought it was a little frustrating because if you were a system administrator, like if you were responsible for supporting Macs in a school or business, you kind of want to get a hold of these OSs early so that if people start installing them, you can test whether your software is working. And to charge you $100 for that just seemed a little off. Well, apparently Apple finally reached the decision point where they said, hey, we're going to just make it where anybody with an Apple ID can download the betas and early release versions for free. And so that's happened already. Now you don't have to pay $100 a year anymore, and off you go.
I was reading the comment section of that article.
And your mind exploded.
It did. It was like that scene from RoboCop 2 when they were testing the new RoboCops. And then Steve Jobs showed up and he was one of the testees.
Yeah.
Anyway, that didn't work out. But no, I was reading how people were saying that it's like, it's about time. Like, welcome to the 21st century kind of thing. Like, why has this always been $100? And how people are, splitting the bill between their friends so that they can have access to this. And it's like people want, and how they think it will actually increase adoption of Mac OS because then people have more access to it.
I don't know that I'd agree with that.
Not saying I agree or disagree.
yeah.
I'm saying that's what they were saying.
Yeah. As far as like improving access, because when you buy a Mac or an iPhone or whatever, you get the OS for free, and the upgrades have always been for free, and until they get to a point where they no longer support you. So I don't know that the betas would necessarily change that. Although it did make me think, like the people that build Hackintoshes,
Yeah.
it was always a struggle for them to get a copy of Mac OS. This would be a way. Except it's now all built on Apple's M2 processor. Maybe
Oh, that's right, because they're ditching Intel altogether. Right?
so. Maybe that's why they held off, because like during the Intel days, if anybody could download it, they could throw it on their Intel machine.
I was seeing that people were saying that this will be a security positive because now people will stop getting it from shady forums and darknet markets
Oh, that's true.
and,
Yeah.
and torrents and stuff. So now they can go straight to the source, know that it's legit, file SIGs and all that other good stuff, and no more, oh, no, this was a scam.
Yeah, and there's some other benefits. Maybe I'm thinking about me personally. Let's be selfish
Yeah.
about this. Is in
For
our
Don.
in our day job, we actually do have an iOS app that gets published, so we have a developer account for that. And I'll log in with that developer account to download the betas. And, it's a sensitive account because if somebody were to get those credentials, they could potentially modify our published app. So I shouldn't use it that way, but I totally do. And now I don't have to. So there we go.
We should speak to the head of technology.
Yeah, that guy doesn't know what he's doing.
It's funny 'cause despite using Apple products, like I have an iPhone, I don't pay much attention to stuff like this when it comes out. It's more just like if my phone works, I'm happy, and that's all that I really needed to do.
Welcome to 99.999% of users.
That's
Yeah.
true. Because if it can make calls and whatever I need to do, then that's fine. I'm not gonna get a new phone unless it's like dying. But it's funny
Or they
because
put it out in, rose gold.
oh yeah, you know me, $6,000, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sign me
But
up.
it's funny to see
You
people
only
like
need one kidney, right?
you got me like reading the forums now, like of all the comments
Oh,
and stuff.
yeah.
And it's kind of funny to see people's input on it. And this guy was like, we desperately needed this after a year and a half of nonstop L's. And it just has me wondering, like, what was going on in the world of Apple that was like nonstop, just L after
Yeah,
L.
remember that
after L.
RoboCop testing I was talking about? If you haven't seen that scene, go look that up.
After 15 developers
When
died.
when the one dude pulled his helmet off and just screamed and fell over dead. Ah, man,
Yeah.
that's funny. That was the Steve Jobs.
It's entertainment.
Comedy gold, it sounds like. I have not seen RoboCop 2. Haven't seen RoboCop 1.
Ah.
Come to that.
Was it you that was telling me that RoboCop 1 was the first movie rated X for violence?
So you and I were talking about this a while back because I thought you were the one who told me,
That's
and
right.
you thought I told
I
you. So
could have sworn you told me.
we don't know who originated that, but
yeah, it's a paradox.
it was the first film rated X for violence, and they had to do an edit to get it down to R.
Yeah.
Much like we do at Technado. For you guys, you get
Yeah.
a 1 hour episode of Technado each week, but we
Yeah.
throw away like 4 hours of footage.
That's right. I mean, we have 10x over beaten the record for most fake blood used in a podcast.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Are we sure about that?
Our
That's-
dry cleaning bills through the
yeah,
roof.
it is
That's why some of these episodes Daniel makes limited appearances because we
Yeah.
just have to cut out most of it.
yeah.
That's why. This is going to be a new, whenever we get these articles now, I'm going to start reading all the forum comments and just wasting my whole day. Just
is-
reading what other people think of
It
it.
will
Totally
definitely time
wasting.
suck. Yeah.
I could, because it's like, what, close to 200 comments or something like that. So I could spend the whole day doing that. But okay, but as long as you have an Apple ID, you can roll in the free version, you can get access to beta releases. That sounds like a pretty fair trade. I think that's pretty neat.
It's free.
Will I use it? Probably not. But for people that will, congratulations. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking administrators, people that manage Mac networks, just a chance to try a new version before it starts rolling out to people's computers, especially if you do bring your own device, is really handy.
And then when you get everything figured out, they make a bunch of changes right before they release.
They do that.
And you're totally hosed anyway. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a little game they like to play.
I love that pessimistic outlook. That's great. You're either right or pleasantly surprised.
It
It's
only
great.
comes from years of experience.
You're just cynical and bitter. That's all. It's just years of experience.
Don't worry. This is your future.
You'll get there.
The light will slowly
That's
disappear
right.
from my eyes.
The death
With
just
each episode, my hope
slowly
diminishes.
kisses you on the cheek as you remove your helmet screaming.
All right, we got to get her a RoboCop helmet. I
Yeah,
don't know where you buy that. It's on Etsy, I'm
Sure,
sure.
have that. Yeah.
Well, we go from a pretty positive article. It seems like it's pretty great news to decidedly an anger-infused article. This one comes from Ars Technica. Clearly predatory. That's in quotes. Western Digital sparks panic anger for age shaming HDDs. So I'm not laughing at the news. I'm sorry. It's just your
Rather
reaction.
The fact that Don is looking up RoboCop helmets right now.
I'm on Etsy,
Man,
and
there's no shortage of RoboCop helmets to be had. Oh man,
Wow.
there! Look at
Wow.
there's the dude.
We'll have
the
to see if
dude
we can get, like, a
screaming.
picture of that.
Oh man,
Wow.
that is his.
oh, the internet is an awesome, magical
it really
place.
is. It really is. It's made all my
Wow.
wildest dreams come true.
That's so specific.
That is funny.
Wow.
So somebody was predatory, right? Is that-
Yeah.
Is that what I
Oh,
heard?
wrong,
Anywho, yeah.
wrong movie. So it does say clearly predatory. So I guess what happened is that owners of a specific hard drive from Western Digital are given a warning label telling them they need to consider replacing their drives soon at I think 3 years of use. And because of that, some people are accusing Western Digital of age shaming, which I thought I thought that was like a workplace thing. Like if you discriminate against somebody because they're old, like that's a bad thing, or they're older, I guess. I did not realize that you could do that with
To an
technology.
inanimate object.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain you cannot shame an inanimate object.
So this is a straight up clickbait title.
Oh, yeah. But what they're reporting on is actually happening, and so Western Digital is doing something a little bit shady, and they've not had the cleanest track record the last couple of years after their whole SMR deal with the shipping hard drives with a different performance rating than what the box said. Like they've had some scandals in the last year or two.
Lying to your customer base is not considered a good practice.
As long as it's in their best interest.
Ah,
And their best interest is that Western Digital makes more money and stays in business.
well, that
so
seems right.
it's a given.
Seems absolutely right.
But in this case, what's going on is now these are spinning discs, and it's their Western Digital Red Plus drives, which are designed to go into NAS, network attached storage. And basically, you plug them into these systems, you turn them on, you just let the systems run and run and run. And in the olden days, it was pretty standard for hard drives to come with a 3-year warranty. And if you just went to Best Buy and bought one off the shelf, it came with a 1-year warranty. So, things have changed over time. Now, most drives only have a 1-year warranty, but the premium ones are usually still like a 3-year. Well, what Western Digital is doing is now when the drive hits that 3-year mark, regardless of whether there's any problem with the drive or not, it will start popping a warning message saying, hey, this drive's over 3 years old, you're at risk. And, you can look at that and say that's pretty sleazy behavior because it may make people think they need to replace a disk that is technically good. But I can actually see both sides on this one. And I've worked in some environments where we had massive amounts of hard drives, like thousands of hard drives. And when you've got a SAN, so I'm not talking about a NAS, I'm a little higher end, right? So when you're on a storage area network, a SAN, and you've got 1,000 hard drives that have been spinning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for 3 years, and you shut that SAN down for maintenance, you power it off, and you power it back on, it is a given you are losing some drives, right? Like spinning disks, once they get up and spinning, they'll stay spinning practically forever. 5, 7 years, it'll keep going. But the moment you shut them off and the motor has to spin that disk back up, that's when you're going to have your failure. And I can say this truthfully without hyperbole or inflation or whatever. I have literally never shut a SAN down and turned it back on without losing at least one drive. That's always how I just count for it. I count on it. Like I will not shut down a SAN if it's got a failed hard drive. I got to wait for recovery first.
Yeah, I thought this was a very odd article because I'm like, I feel like there's two sides to this. That here's Western Digital, take it from their side of things. Let's say yes, they're all about making money, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with making money. If let's say that their drives were failing after 3 years and they didn't say anything to you, would we be reading an article that said Western Digital chucks customer, integrity to the fire because they don't give a damn that your drives fail, and then they laugh at your horrendous, thing that's going on, and they sell a bunch of other drives? I feel like this was a lose-lose situation for them.
Yeah.
Damned if they did and damned if they didn't.
Although I think your second scenario is just what people expect of hard drive companies.
It's true, right?
I think that's
so,
where we're
so
at.
what you're saying is this might actually have been a positive thing that they were attempting to do to say, hey, it's been about 3 years. Might want to think about putting a hot spare on the shelf
Yeah.
because you never know. This thing's probably getting close to end of life.
I think of it as like your car, right? You buy a brand new car
Right.
and it's got a warranty,
Yep.
and it might be what is it, like 3 years, 30,000 miles or something, whatever the
Yeah.
standard warranty is. When that time is up, the car is still good. You can still drive it, but your warranty's out,
Right.
and it's not like Ford or Toyota or whoever is going to call you. Well, no, that's not true. They call the hell out of you. don't
Extended warranty.
they? Yeah, they want to extend it.
That's right.
Western Digital, I don't think does that. Dell does, like Dell and HP, they'll extend the warranty on
So
hard
in
drive.
my early days, my years back when I was a younger man looking for work and doing whatever I
You
could.
still had that glimmer of hope in your eye.
Yeah.
Like Sophie does.
I
still.
got finagled into selling Kirby vacuum cleaners.
All right.
I'm like, all right, cool. I'd never been a salesperson before, so this was an interesting experience for me. And one of the sales tactics that we would use when we were demonstrating the vacuum was, what vacuum cleaner do you have now? I've got a Hoover, or I've got a whatever that I bought at Walmart. Okay, cool. Did it come with a warranty? It did. How long is the warranty for? A year, maybe 2, maybe 3. So we give you a lifetime warranty on the Kirby. And that's why they're still running around, and they are more expensive, but you get to get them serviced for life. They should last you for life. What your Hoover is telling me is that they only expect that thing to last a year because that's as far as they warranty it. Are we seeing the same thing here?
Maybe. Yeah.
Right?
Now, this also specifically applies to spinning discs, which have typically a higher failure rate. A lot of people started moving their workloads over to solid state, and so this is not so much a concern there, although solid state has its own problems too, with eventually exceeding its rights and so on. Yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily blame Western Digital for doing this. It'd be different if they said, this drive is over 3 years old, it's no longer
Yeah,
supported.
you must buy another one now.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be a different story. But if they're just warning you that the drive is old, well, it is. It's past that point. And 3 years is a long time for a spinning disc.
Now, I read in the article, though, that they did say that, like, if you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to follow the advice. I'm going to buy a new disc. I'm going to replace this one disc because it's X, Y, or Z old. You have to, like, you can't just break the discs at that point. You have to tell it, like, you have to, like, suppress the warning because it won't let you change the disc with the warning active. So
Sweet.
there is a little bit of administrative like
Annoyance.
Yes, annoyance that you'd have to do to actually make that work. So I don't know what they're expecting if that is the case. Like, how do I make that warning go away so I can change the disc and break the, so if I've got an array of some kind, what do you want me to do there?
Apparently
Western Digital.
switch to Seagate drives or
Yeah,
something
there you
else.
There you go.
Sophie, did you see anything good in the peanut gallery?
So
Yeah.
I was going to ask, this might
Western
be,
Digital gave me cancer.
Twice.
this might be an obvious question, but
It wasn't the nice kind.
the nice kind of cancer?
Yeah.
Benign? Do you mean
Well,
like a
let me
benign
put it
tumor?
this way. No, I can tell you some cancers you don't want to get for sure.
Anyway, so
I like how Don is like, and we'll stop there.
I was like, to Sophie's point, is there one you want to get? Like,
Let me put it this way. If you had a choice, you would definitely choose another.
gotcha.
okay. Yeah. I totally understand.
I'll explain
So-
it to you later then.
I'm sure you will. Somebody had mentioned that their backup drive is 11 years old or around 11 years old and nearly 4 years of power on time. So in the article, and again, this might be an obvious question, but in the article it says after 3 years of power on time, that's when you get this this label. So it's just like 3 years worth of runtime.
Oh, that's interesting. So it like a 3-year warranty is not uncommon with hard drives, but measuring 3 hours of runtime, that's interesting. Yeah.
3 hours?
Oh, sorry, not 3 hours.
3 years worth of
3 years. It
like,
shows right
yeah.
now.
power on hours. It says, they're getting
Yeah.
a warning stamp once their power on hours count hits the 3 year mark. So it's
they're
not just
saying
like
that just the
it's not
amount
just
of-
like
it's
timer
not just
starts
checking
at 5.
runtime.
Yeah.
Supposedly,
As
that's-
soon as you
yeah.
power it on for the first time, it goes, okay, there's start.
Weird.
And now it's been 3 years from now. Here's your warning. Even if you've only run that disk a few.
But when you turn the disc off,
But if you're
the
using
timer
it for
stops,
a NAS,
right?
it is a NAS drive, right? It's not like
yeah.
it's a.
I mean, you'd want to leave it on all the
it
time.
would be on all the time.
Yeah.
At least that would
I didn't
be
know
the
if there was
expectation.
an important distinction or anything because somebody had mentioned like, well, mine's 11 years old, but
so
it's
network attached storage like usually runs 24/7,
That's what you want,
365. Yeah.
okay.
It's a weird thing for them to call out, and weirder like for them to track that, for a drive to track its own. I know the higher end.
There's probably
drives
an
do that,
exploit in there somewhere.
but Yeah, yeah, like Intel's manage engine.
yeah,
and all
yeah,
that,
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Just a curiosity question. I've just was wondering if there was a reason they pointed that out, but maybe not. Who knows? We'll get a cease and desist from them. Stop making fun of us.
yeah. I can see both sides of this argument, so I don't want to like call out Western Digital on it too much, but hey, there's other hard drive manufacturers. You can always switch to Seagate and
I think
whoever
this
else.
is a big deal, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like whoop-de-doo, so they warn you. Hey, listen, some people that are setting up network attached storage might not understand.
Well, you heard it here.
Okay.
That's true.
Last time I checked, the onus was on the consumer, right? I have to do my research. Unless you sold me a lemon, there are lemon laws for those reasons. It's up to me to do my research and buy the right product.
Well, there we go.
Right?
Caveat emptor.
Yeah, caveat emptor. That's it. Buyer beware.
You guys know I don't speak French.
So French is like a weird, twisted form of Latin, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I didn't mean to put us on a tangent. I'm sorry.
Then shush. You're not allowed to speak if you don't want us to turn it and twist it.
I thought you were losing your voice.
You think that'll stop me? Don't think it stopped me.
All right. Well, you guys are both pretty invested in Linux. Like you guys both have a lot of knowledge, I would think, on Linux.
I own the company.
More than I do. To me, it's a lot. So maybe you will have something to say about this next one, because this next one has to do with Linux. It comes from OMG Ubuntu, which is such a fun name for a news site. And it says Ubuntu 18.04. I'm probably saying that wrong. General support ends. Enable ESM to stay protected. So general support's ending for Ubuntu 18.04. But if you're still using it, it's expanded security maintenance, and that'll give you like an additional several years of security updates.
Yeah, so we actually reported on Ubuntu or Canonical's new program for ESM that they launched. It was at the end of last year, at the end of 2022. So it was a little bit back that we reported on it. And, they have their long-term support releases that they do. Any release that's an even numbered year followed by April, the .04, is a long-term support release, which means they're going to support it for 6 years. Well, the 18.04, 5 years. I got to get the numbers right because we're in 2023 right now, so it's 5 years. So
I can count to potato. So
was I right in the first place with 6 years?
If it was released in 2018, then it would be 5 years this year.
Yep. Yeah. So this was April of 2018. That's the 18.04. And it's reached its end of general support. So if you're just an average Joe that downloaded Ubuntu 18.04 and installed it on a computer, stuck it in your closet, and then forgot about it because,
that's probably what you
Linux and it'll just run. Yeah. That's fine. But the next time you go to run some updates, it's going to fail to do the updates because it's no longer in mainstream support. So here's the exact scenario that Canonical designed the ESM program around. Now, if you've forgotten what the ESM is, I don't blame you because most people didn't bother with it. But it's free for regular users that are managing up to 5 computers. You can go sign up for an ESM account, and that will get you 2 years, or is it 3? 2 or 3 years of extra service to continue to update that system and keep it running. Now, if you have more than 5 computers, that's where you need to subscribe and you pay for that support. So the idea is that a home user shouldn't be impacted by this. It's just free. They get a few extra years of support. But if you're a company or an enterprise that has a lot of systems deployed with 18.04, then you just need to pay a little extra to keep that support, or move to the completely free 20.04 or 22.04, or the next one would be 24.04. Like every 2 years they release a new LTS version. So this is just that new release cycle. And if you've got 18.04 in your environment, you either need to be thinking about migrating to a newer version of the OS or enrolling in the ESM program.
Don, in your experience, would you say that it is just a good practice to always be doing some sort of side-by-side upgrade so that you can stay in that pocket of support?
So in today's day and age, right, it's the year 2023, to me, there is no place for in-place upgrades anymore.
Right.
Remember, we used to do that. You'd have a Windows Server 2003 machine, and you'd in-place upgrade it to the next version, and sometimes it worked.
Yeah, that's scary as hell, wasn't it?
yeah. And I'm talking about some long weekends trying to get that crap working again. And Linux isn't much different. Like, you can do an in-place upgrade from 18.04 straight up to 20.04. And sometimes it works, right? But not all the packages come over. Version numbers are different. Things break. In today's age of virtual machines and containers and all of that, you shouldn't be doing in-place upgrades. That it's you deploy a second system, and move your data over. Even if this is running on bare metal, right? Like if you installed 18.04, then you're talking about bare metal hardware that's 5 years old. So it's probably time to upgrade that hardware anyway. So yeah, I will do an in-place upgrade if I absolutely have to.
Right.
But you can be damn
don't
sure
want to, yeah.
backing that up, and got a way to be able to recover if that upgrade fails, because it will.
Yeah. Man, I got to where I had 2 servers. One was like test for doing various testing for updates or whatever the case is and going with new software. And then one that was production. I got to where I would eventually like flip test into production, and then the old production became the test server. And we would just kind of go back and forth until hardware was, and then you migrate hardware.
Yeah.
And it just becomes, that's kind of the job. It's kind of how you make that go. That way you can stay right in that nice pocket. If you got plenty of time to make sure everything's going to work, no one's going to get their hair on fire. If it doesn't, because it's at that point, it's just an update server. It's just or a test server. Once everything is running and clicking, flip it over. Now it's a production server. It's just a stinking DNS record, most likely, switch. Everybody, no one even loses a ping to the dang thing.
Yeah.
And you're off to the races. It's just a smart way to go. And you're not paying anything for the operating system because it's Ubuntu. Fun.
Yeah. Here's your chance to keep that support going, easy migration path.
Yeah.
And
but if you don't plan, right, you plan to fail.
that is
Fail to
absolutely
plan,
true.
plan to fail.
Wow.
Well,
You really are a dad.
wise man.
Go to your room.
Wise man once said.
I haven't been I haven't earned that right here yet in this office. I don't have a room yet.
Yeah.
I have a desk. So there was somebody, the guy that wrote the article had said he thinks of ESM as more of a crutch for people that can't upgrade to a newer version if they're not able to, but not a reason to not upgrade at all.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why, other than just literally for whatever reason not being able to upgrade, is there any reason why you would choose to say like, nah, I'm going to stick with the distro that I have
Oh
now?
yeah. So like I used to have these Riverbed appliances. Well, actually, there were some. I had a couple of devices like this where you buy an appliance, right? And so the appliance is maybe it's an intrusion detection system, or the one I'm thinking of was an IDS, or the Riverbed was actually a
Replication
WAN
service, right?
optimization thing, and it ran Linux, right? But I didn't have the full ability to do whatever I wanted with it. I had to run a supported version of Linux by that vendor. And so if Riverbed, which they've been acquired since then, I forget who owns them, Juniper or somebody, that if Riverbed didn't support 20.04, I had to stay on 18.04 or whatever, right? And so in those scenarios, you might have a vendor that's got you locked in, or maybe you have some proprietary in-house developed software
I think
and
of industrial control systems.
oh yeah,
Right? They get developed. I mean, there's stinking water power plants out there that are running Windows NT4.
Yes, sad but true.
That is right now. That is running. That operating system is how old, Don?
Yeah. Well, NT4 came out in like 1997.
Yeah.
But you still see OS2 on ATM machines.
Yeah. Right.
Which is nuts. Yeah.
And therefore, yeah, and that does suck. And someone could rob your ATM. But I think of the power grid going out, and that seems scary. That seems very bad.
Yeah.
Right. So they have to secure these things. You can't update it because if I turn the machine off, what happens? You stop having power because the
Yeah.
machine runs the power plant,
True.
right? So it's not like you can just go, well, we'll just turn this off and upgrade
And
it,
then, okay.
right? So now that's like, okay, we've got this built-in infrastructure that cannot be shut off ever. We have to now start building new infrastructure so that one day this can die, because it will. And until then, we secure it by building fences around it.
Right.
Use
Okay. Yeah.
secondary security
Yeah.
controls to try to keep it as safe as possible. And that's something you can do as well. If you're running Ubuntu 18.04, you can make sure it has an IDS and everything, that very strict firewall rules to help keep it protected. Only, services, all that standard security business that we should be probably doing anyway. And you just make sure they're very strict access to that machine until you can get that update occurred.
Okay.
There you go.
I was just curious, just interested if, other than just not being able to, if there was a reason somebody would be like, I'm just not going to update because I don't feel like it. So
Yeah, sometimes they're
Some
lazy.
people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're called admins.
Yeah. If it's not broke, don't fix
Yeah,
it,
that's
right?
right. Don't touch that, Billy. Get your hands off that, boy. I'll smack the spit right out of your mouth.
The server has like a 700-day uptime. And
Remember, they used to try to say, well, look, I mean, that's a good thing. Look how great this machine is. I didn't have to turn it off. It's like, yeah, that's what it is.
Oh. I had a buddy who was an engineer at Sun Microsystems, and he was insufferable. Like
About uptime.
I don't even know what the reboot thing is. Like we don't even have a reboot command. Shut up.
Yeah. Sure you do. Where's that thing at? I'll reboot it.
He's watching this with a single tear rolling down his cheek.
With the Spark server still running. It's never been down.
Well, that, I think, is going to wrap the tech news segment of our show. Not that this isn't fun. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, but we'll be right back with our security news segment, so don't go away. Stay tuned for more Technado. Tired of trying to schedule your team's time around in-person learning? Isn't it a bummer to spend thousands of dollars on travel for professional development? What if we said you can save money and time and still provide your team with the best training possible? The answer to your woes is live online training from ACI Learning. With live online training, we provide our top in-person courses in private, online, instructor-led formats. You get to provide professional development in a manner that fits today's expectations. Entertaining, convenient, and effective. Our exam-aligned courses inspire the full potential of your team. Visit virtual instructor-led training at ACI Learning for more info. Welcome back for more Technado. We wrapped up our tech news segment in the last half of the show. We're going to get into some security news, and we might even see some familiar names that we have talked about recently.
Wait. No, go ahead. Never mind.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Daniel's here. He's here to upset me.
Just
That's
messing
why.
up. I'm throwing rocks in her pond today.
I wait every week for the thing that he says that's going to break me, and I never know what it's going to be. But he always says something. So before we get into all of that, before that happens, we'll go ahead and jump right into our first segment. Got to prepare myself for this.
Don't.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, so, do.
I love how you commit to it every time.
I gotta practice. Gotta
Yeah.
get better every week.
Dedication.
I can't do a full Homer Simpson impression, but I'm getting there.
You're working on it.
So this article comes to us from Security Week. It says new MOVEit vulnerabilities found as more zero-day attack victims come forward. So this kind of ties into we're going to talk about something a little bit later, get more specific with this. But did you guys talk at all about MOVEit while I was gone, about that stuff that was kind of going on with that? Did I miss that conversation?
We didn't, and I had to take credit, blame, whatever for
You
this.
didn't predict the future?
When the news on MOVEit first broke, I did not select it for us to talk about here on the podcast because I looked at it and I was like, well, who the hell uses MOVEit? I had never even heard of this product, and at that point, a little dubious over what the scope is. Like, how many companies can be affected by a product that, and this is my hubris, right? If I haven't heard of it, then it can't possibly be
the
useful.
great and mighty Don Pizzette.
But I don't know everything, as is proven each and every week. But today, MOVEit, two things, right? So first off, we've learned a lot more about it. So now we actually know what's going on, which is good. And secondly, it affected some really big companies. There were some big organizations that were using it. Now, the type of tool is inherently dangerous. And so I'm surprised a lot of these large companies were using it. But if you've ever had, let's say, I'll give you a scenario. I'll assume that a lot of our listeners like me had not heard of MOVEit. Let's say that you had a bunch of data stored in AWS. And you had a bunch of data, or maybe no data at all, stored in Google Cloud, but you wanted to copy between the two. You wanted to move that, right? Well, you could download it to your system and then upload it to the other one. Well, that's going to be bottlenecked on your WAN connection. Or you can leverage services like MOVEit to do direct connections, to move the data directly from one to the other, which is much, much faster. And this has been an idea that's been around in the internet forever. I think way back in the late 90s, I used a program called Flash FXP that would let you move between FTP servers. I've used Molt Cloud over the years, which lets you copy between cloud services.
Remember Molt Cloud, yeah.
MOVEit is just another iteration in that idea of making it easy to move files, but they added a whole extra layer to it, which was not only could you connect it to two cloud services and copy between them, you could connect it to a cloud service and share files out through MOVEit, creating easy links, right? It's not the easiest to do a secure link to a file in AWS S3, but through MOVEit, it's pretty straightforward. You can create a guest link, share it out, and provide people access. And it's actually this feature that's kind of landed them in some hot water. So now that we know about it, I figured we would actually cover it this week.
Okay. I appreciate that. We're covering our bases here. How dare you not be able to predict the future?
Don's like, what do we need to talk about some of these big hacks for? I mean, it's only security news. Everybody's a big hack.
You know, when you hear about like a hack in Windows or Mac OS, you know that there's millions of users that are affected by that. When you hear about a hack in Move It,
You cue the song in your head,
yeah,
right?
I do like to move it.
Every time I hear you say that,
And
it plays on repeat.
I do have a tendency to drop it like it's hot,
As you should.
as you should.
So Christian, our director, teams me as you guys were talking about this and referenced that song. So we're all on the same page here, I think.
yes.
Internally, we're all playing that.
When you make a piece of software called Move It, I hope they license that music.
Yeah, Reel to Reel actually inspired that piece of software.
When I think of that song, though, I always think of King Julian from
Madagascar.
Madagascar. There we go.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes,
there we are.
Stuff. Well, yeah, Don, they got hit pretty good though. That's a real nasty little bug there. What's interesting about this is, so it was a SQL injection that ultimately was being used for initial access to the Move It devices. Interesting thing about this was, like you said, huge companies are using this, and when ultimately I think this probably didn't get as much traction, kind of to your points before, because you wouldn't think, a lot of people aren't doing this. It had to be connected to the internet. Not everybody does that, right? Well, in a way that access could be gotten from internet side of things and not necessarily from the back end. You could come in from anywhere and gain access to it. So there was that as well. It only affected a certain subset of their appliances, if I'm not mistaken. So it kept kind of dwindling down, but the people that were using it and had that perfect storm were massive organizations. And it was something like, I think when I first read about this, people were saying, what is this, 1997? A SQL injection? I thought we fixed this. Like, this should not be a problem. And then as they were triaging this, they actually, I think it was Progress.
Progress is the name of the company that makes
the name of the
Move It,
company, right? They hired Huntress to help them out. And you don't know who Huntress is if you're familiar with John Hammond.
Mm-hmm.
John Hammond worked for Huntress or works for Huntress. So yeah, that's their team. They went, hey, did you notice this one as well? They found another completely different SQL injection problem with the same devices. So they were able to triage 2 CVEs for the same kind of attack. And then, of course, they realized, oh, yeah, this has actually been being exploited in the wild.
Whoops.
It's no bueno for them.
And, you know, Daniel, you have been involved in cybersecurity for quite some time, and you've studied the OWASP Top 10 for many, many years.
I've perused it once or twice.
In all of the time, from day one of you learning about the OWASP Top 10 to today, has SQL injection ever not been on that list?
No, it's always there.
It's always there.
Always there. They change it. At some point, it was like SQL injection named out specifically, and then they changed it to injection. But injections, and underneath that rubric is SQL injections, right? It's in the name. You probably noticed that.
They just like made it more broad, like injection attacks in general.
Right, because injections started becoming very popular because we take a lot of input from our users as we move more and more to web-based forms and access. You have to take stuff in from an end user, like username and password, and other things. And it then becomes a very big game of whack-a-mole to try to make sure all your software, where are all the inputs coming from? And I have to put filters and I have to put controls to make sure that there's parameterized queries or statements and things of that nature so that this does not happen. And I even think that, I want to say that, was it this one or was it another one? I read a lot of different exploits that happen, but I want to say that it had to do with how it was basically reading from, that was a different one. Okay. Yeah. This was to,
in your old age, things start to run together.
I basically read the entirety of the Hacker News like every day. And there's a lot of similarities between the different attacks, and some of them, especially some of the more esoteric things that you will never hear about.
I think we just witnessed a real life buffer overflow.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Just happened.
I had 2 different inside the same memory space. And it was pointing me to the wrong instructions. But it is kind of interesting, though, that, we are still dealing with SQL injection down the road. I would assume that this is not going to be the last one we hear about.
Now, if, like me, you had never heard of Move It, And even the company behind it, Progress, you're like,
Yeah.
well, that's a generic name, isn't it? Let me give you a little history, or maybe this will jog your memory if you're like me. Progress used to be named Ipswitch. Ipswitch has
That
been
does sound
around for a
familiar.
long time. They are the makers of What's Up Gold, a very popular monitoring service where you can run it on-prem, so it doesn't have to be cloud, although I think they do have a cloud solution where you can monitor all of your servers and other network switches and so on for performance. And they also make the WSFTP client, which has been around for a million years.
I wonder if that's like the impetus of Move It, right? Because it's basically an FTP type of service, right?
Yeah, but secure in theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
With
theory.
less SQL injections.
Yep. So the company's been around a while. It's changed names a few times, and I'm a little uncertain as to what their role is with Chef, the automation suite.
Yeah.
I don't know if Ipswitch created that or Progress created that or whatever, but it's somehow attached to them as well. So they're an established IT company. But if you are leveraging MoveIt at this point, if it's publicly exposed, which is what it's designed to be, you have to assume that an exploit has happened.
Yeah, that's not fun. There are plenty of IOCs out there, so definitely check out their page where they have the advisory for this. All the pertinent information you need to help get this triaged is there for you. So if you are running MoveIt, you're gonna want to take a look at that.
So I was going to say that we'll move on from Move It, but we're actually not going to do that. We're not done talking about it now that you have fear
But
in your
wait,
heart.
there's more.
Yeah, if you call right now. We are going to move on to our next segment, though. This segment is called Who Got Pwned?
Looks like you're about to get pwned.
Fatality.
Yeah!
I don't have an impression for that one. I haven't perfected my South Park character voices yet, so can't quite do that one yet. But this article comes to us from BBC. It says BBC, BA, and Boots issued with ultimatum by cyber gang Clop. Boots, of course, being the monkey from Dora the Explorer. So this also, I'm kidding. This also has to do with that Move It hack that we just talked about for a little bit. So there's this gang Clop, which is the most threatening name for a gang ever, posted a notice warning firms that
I got the clop.
That's exactly what I thought when I read it.
It was right there. I could not swing and hit
I
that.
wasn't gonna say it. I was like, no, I can't say that, but you said it for me. So
Just
yeah,
say it with an Eastern European accent. There you go. You have the clop.
the most threatening gang name ever. They posted a notice warning firms that were affected by that Move It hack to email them before June 14th, or stolen data will be published. So the companies named here were, I believe they were all English companies, but of course it's a BBC article, so it makes sense.
It's UK News.
So I'm assuming that it's not just these companies. There were others,
Oh, right. Yeah, there's a
presumably.
lot. Yeah, the moral of this story, sometimes we report on breaches or vulnerabilities or things that come out, but we haven't seen them truly in the wild, right? Like, remember Heartbleed when that one came out? Everybody was going nuts. Like, this is horrible. It's terrible. People can get your private keys. But, like, no one ever fell victim to it. Yeah, it was a big deal. We had to patch, but you couldn't say, like, oh, this company got popped, because nobody did. And Spectre and Meltdown, as big a deal as that was, like, completely changed the performance of our hardware because of the mitigations. No one really got hit by it. So, it was.
Is that because we discovered them and mitigated it before it became an issue?
I think that's mostly it. And it was incredibly hard to leverage either one of them, right? And really, really difficult. But in this case, the Move It exploit, like Daniel said just a few moments ago, already has a POC that's out there, which means the attackers figured this out months ago. They're saying 7 months, I think.
It
is
was
what
like
they're-
October or something.
Yeah, a while ago. But researchers are only just now able to recreate it and put that POC out.
Yeah.
So this is actively in use, and that is what some organizations are learning. So the BBC actually received ransom demands, basically saying, look, you've got to pay us out, or we're going to leak some information. The ransomware gang here, it's not really ransomware, though, because they just stole the data. They didn't encrypt it or delete it.
It's
but,
cyber exploitation, or not exploitation.
Blackmail, right?
Yeah, blackmail or extortion.
Extortion. Yes,
Yes.
that's the right word.
Yeah.
There we go.
Knew it.
So,
Damn buffer overflow still getting me.
so this is, it's not good for them. And the reality is, just like with ransomware, if you pay the people, there's literally no guarantee whatsoever that they're actually going to delete the
Which
data.
is why we have double extortion, right? Like, it's always fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one's a bad one if again, if you are a company or support a company that uses Move It, you kind of have to just act as if you've been exploited already, as you've been compromised, and do the research and dig in and see so you can verify that. But certainly, do your updates, do your patches, and make sure that you're protected.
I think I read it in the article, or maybe it was some other article I was reading about this, that they were saying that Klopp was so busy. It was a blizzard of exploits when it came to this whole Move It thing for them, that they were like, we can't put ransomware on this. We'll just contact them and say, hey, contact us and get back to us. And that's basically where they were moving so fast at exploiting things that they just literally did not have time to do any other thing than exploit it, exfiltrate data, and move to the next target. Exploit and exfiltrate data, move to the next target, because they just wanted to gather up as much as they possibly could so that they could go, well, now that we've got all this, we'll start sending thank you cards.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, pay us some money.
Although in this case, so sometimes this happens and they have a really small window of time because they're like, hey, people are going to be patching and blocking this stuff. But here, I wonder how surprised they were, like, after week 1 and then, like, week 4. And then it's been 3 or 4 months. I'm like, wow, caught up on my queue of exploitation emails.
Yeah. Does it run like a corporate business? Are they all sitting around, hey, Mom, how's it going, Jerry? How are the kids? It's good. Oh, I got 6 ransomware exploits to pull off today. I don't know if I'm going to get it done.
I bet they do. Like, did you log a Jira ticket on it?
I got 3 managers, Jerry. These assholes are after me all day. Like, I do not see your ransoms coming in.
They have to fill out a TPS
They got a
report.
quota. They got to hit.
I feel like that's how it goes. I got to be honest.
That's the next Netflix sitcom that's going to come out.
Yeah. Our time at Klopp.
I think there's a genuine idea here. Like,
Yes.
We got to pitch that
At least
to
a
Netflix.
sketch, or like a sketch, right? I got to get that done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do ACI Night Live instead of Saturday.
ACI Night Live.
Yeah. That doesn't make
Which will
any
be
sense.
ACINL, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll workshop it. I'll work on that.
Yeah.
It could have been better. I was focused on the article.
That's
so
okay.
I wasn't.
Whatever
I wasn't running
you
at
have to
full
do to help
capacity.
yourself sleep at night. That's
Well, if you take away one thing from these 2 articles, it should be that Don was wrong, and this was a significant event that we probably should have reported on a week or 2 ago. But I am kind of glad that we waited until now because we have more information.
yeah, a little more info.
Yeah. You were just trying to not jump the gun. You just wanted to make sure you had all the facts
That's
before
exactly
you
it.
started offering opinions. So, yeah, that's
Before I
all.
stack my fake news on top of it.
Yeah.
He was
That's
he was just being responsible. So now we will move on from Move It. We'll go ahead and jump into our next segment. It's my favorite, Deja News.
Deja News.
And it's my favorite because it means that we've talked about this before. So I have some residual knowledge left over. So this comes to us from the Hacker News. Barracuda urges immediate replacement of hacked ESG appliances. I think we just talked about this last week, didn't we?
We did. Yeah.
So you may remember us talking about this. So now Barracuda is saying, regardless of patch version level, they recommend you just fully replace. If you have an impacted ESG, just replace it, which is so great for people that were impacted by this. It's just so convenient.
Sometimes you hear about a breach, and it's bad, right? And you think it can't get any worse, and then it does. Like, it somehow gets absolutely worse.
This is the hack I was thinking of earlier that was taking over my brain.
So
Continue.
when Barracuda first came out to tell people that their appliances and virtual machines, virtual appliances, that they were compromised, they were being actively exploited by a 0-day, they said at the time, look, if you've got one of our hardware appliances, you need to patch and update it, right? If you've got one of our virtual appliances, we recommend you just redeploy a fresh and clean one and blow away the old one. And a lot of people were looking at that as weird, like, wait a minute. You're telling me just to throw away the virtual machine, but not the physical hardware. What did you do on the physical hardware that you couldn't do in a VM? Because that doesn't make any sense.
Voodoo.
Right? Well, it turns out it was BS, right? So, like, the just patching and updating your hardware appliance isn't enough. And the 0-day provided the attackers enough access on the system that they could get a foothold that Barracuda can't back out. Can't clean it up. And so they have come out with a further update saying, if you leverage one of our Barracuda ESG appliances, you got to replace it. You've got to like literally ship the device back to Barracuda. They'll ship you a new one, or you can pay for an advanced replacement or whatever. You can take it offline, but it's as bad as it gets for a hardware appliance. They're basically telling you cannot fix this in the field. You have got to ship it back. And at first, I was surprised by this, but then I remember an encounter I had with Barracuda years ago that was super frustrating. So we had a Barracuda anti-spam device, and it had 2 hard drives in it, and one of them failed.
It was a Western Digital.
I don't know, maybe it was over 3 years old. So
It didn't warn you.
so it had 2 hard drives in it, and they were in a software mirror, and one failed. And you would think, all right, hey, one failed, so it would flip over to the other one. But it was a software mirror, and it wouldn't do that. And so the idea was if you had that failure, you'd send the appliance back to Barracuda, and they could recover the information off of the good drive and then get the system back online and send it to you. And the system was pretty locked down. Like, you couldn't get into the BIOS on it. You couldn't get in to change anything. It was all locked down, and you had to send that appliance back. And I think that's what we're seeing here is Barracuda's had this business model of practically extortionate warranty calls, like where you cannot fix things on-prem. You've got to send stuff back to them. And now it's biting them in the butt because everyone is considered to be exploited with this 0-day. It's bad. And everyone is having to send those devices back. Well, if you're a company and you have to go through that, are you going to keep doing business with Barracuda?
That's a no, Bob.
Yeah, that's a guarantee.
Yeah.
So it's about as bad as it can get for a hardware vendor.
Wow, this straight up sucks right here. Because now everybody that's having to send their appliance back is going, hey, Billy, go ahead and start looking at competitors and what their offerings are, because I'm not going through this bullish ever again. Next.
Yeah. Yeah. So this CVE's got a CVSS score of 9.8. It's pretty bad.
I mean, they can recover.
Yeah, it could be worse. Could
Yeah.
be a 9.9.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can it actually get to 10?
It's like that scene on Groundhog Day when he drives the truck off of the quarry, right? And
He
it
can
hits
still
the ground.
make it.
He can still be all right. Ba-boom. Well, probably not now.
Well, yeah. Last week they were driving off the cliff. This week,
Today the truck exploded.
yeah. Don't drive angry.
Yeah.
Is there any silver lining to all this, or is it just straight up sucks?
I mean, Barracuda disclosed it.
They were honest.
They didn't keep it secret, so that's.
They didn't have much of a choice, I don't think.
Yeah. It was just being exploited for 7 months before they knew about it. So it's like but as soon as they knew, they were forthcoming, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm picturing like when you're a kid and you get sick and it's like the middle of the night and you got to go tell your parents and you're standing in your mom's doorway. You're like, Mom, I threw up. That's Barracuda standing in our doorway. Like, I have
It seems
something
more
to
like
tell
you walked over to your mom's bed and went, "Hey, Mom, and she was like open mouth snoring.
Oh God.
And then she wasn't. Well, because
Probably not now.
no, probably not.
Oh, the joys of children.
Yeah. Good,
Oh.
aren't they?
So the active theory that's out there, and Barracuda hasn't disclosed all the details on it, but the active theory is for it to be this bad, the attackers must have found some way to either modify the BIOS or the firmware of these appliances, something that goes beyond what can normally be patched remotely, and that's pretty bad, security is like an onion. It's supposed to be made of many layers,
Yes.
right? Like an ogre, right? An ogre is
No
like
single
an onion.
point of failure.
But in this case, once the attackers were in, they had full access. It was really bad.
Well, I mean, the attackers liked it. They were like, this is
That's
heaven.
the silver lining.
Yeah.
Man,
Man, they're
their
sending
manager's gonna be happy.
stinking Barracuda gift baskets and thank you cards and
Yeah. Do we know the time frame on this one? From, I mean, we know that the patches went out May 20th. So it's actually been patched for
October
2 weeks.
2022. Like I said, this one was the one that was.
Oh,
bleeding
that was
into my
7
brain.
months.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yep. So that sucks.
Yeah. Straight up.
Dang. That sucks. Okay. Well, this was a roller coaster emotionally for me. A roller coaster
Yeah.
of an episode. I laughed, I cried, but mostly I cried. And now we're going to learn some things. Technado is sponsored by ACI Learning, the people behind IT Pro. If you're listening from the Technado website, look for that sponsored by button. If you click on that, it will take you to the IT Pro website. So if you want to support the podcast, check out those courses. You can use the promo code Technado30, and that'll get you a discount on your IT Pro membership. You can also check out ACI Learning's webinars and live on social events. We've got one coming up. It'll be next week, a week from the day this episode's released. It'll be June 22nd. Myself and Anthony Sequeira talking about some cybersecurity stuff. It's going to be fun. Great time's going to be had by all. We'll laugh, we'll cry, and we'll learn things. And I think that's pretty much all I got. Do you guys have anything to contribute to my spiel that I'm sure you thoroughly enjoyed?
No. It's,
If my voice wasn't gone, I would scream like the RoboCop guy, but
Okay. Silence from the peanut gallery.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We do actually. If any of you listeners out there have a good lead on a inexpensive RoboCop helmet,
yeah, send that too.
'cause they're $200 a pop on Etsy.
Ooh.
And I
Do we have a
love
P.O.
humor.
box that we
Yeah.
can give them an address to?
Not sure if you love it that much though. Yeah.
A little on the pricey side.
We'll start a GoFundMe for the
There you go.
robot.
There you
Keep an eye out for
screaming
when
robot figurine.
when Spirit Halloween occupies the latest abandoned store.
So like mid-July, because that's when they start popping up. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Technado. I hope you had as much fun as I did, and we'll see you next week.